Hello, this is Joe Storr from QA Graphics. I'm here to present a video tutorial detailing how to create a building automation graphic for your building system using the QA Graphics Symbol Library in Photoshop. Now, there are a lot of different programs that you can use to make the backgrounds for your building automation system. You can use Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop Elements, and depending on what system you use, you might be able to build it in the building automation system itself. However, I find that the most efficient and universal program to use is Photoshop. So this tutorial is done using Photoshop CS5. So we're going to start building the graphic by creating a new file. To do this, we're going to select File, New, and the New File dialog box will pop up. We're going to use this dialog box to set up the size of our image. Which file size to use is up to you, and usually dependent on factors such as your template size, processing power, and the size of the monitor that the graphic will be displayed on. One note of caution is that depending on your BAS, you typically should not resize the symbols that we provide. The reason is that the static pings match the size of the animated GIFs which you load into your BAS. And depending on your BAS, you might not be able to resize the animation to fit the background image. So be sure to pick a size from the start that will be able to fit the majority of the systems on one graphic. I'm going to use a pre-made template which is 1073 by 827 pixels as a background. You may have a template that your company uses, or you may have purchased one from QA Graphics, or you may just want a colored background. Either way, you need to input your desired document size here. To do this, I'm first going to change the units to pixels. That's found in the drop-down menu here. And then I'll type in the desired size. I'll check to ensure that my screen resolution is 72 pixels per inch and that I'm in RGB mode. Here you can specify the background to be black, white, or transparent. I typically use transparent. And I'll name my file QA Graphic. Here you can save a preset if you wish. If you think you'll be doing a lot of graphics with these exact settings, this might not be a bad idea. I usually just open an old file and save as rather than starting entirely from scratch like this, but if you want to save a preset, you have that option. You just name the preset. Make sure these boxes are checked, and click OK. When you start a new graphic, you'll simply use this preset drop-down menu to set the new file up. After you're done with that, or if you skip the preset option entirely, just select OK, and your workspace will pop up. The first thing that I do when I get to this point is set up my workspace. You'll see that there are a lot of windows on this page, but the two most important ones that you'll need to know are your toolbar here on the left and the layer window down here on the right. If at any point you lose your toolbar or layer window, or you don't see them right now, you can get them back simply by going to Window and making sure that Tools and Layers are selected. You may also accidentally click and drag a window at some point, and if you do that, you can just drag it back into place and it'll snap on either side. Now we're going to create a background image for this file. Navigate to the Layer window and click on the New Layer button. And name it Background. I can either put a color here or import a template. To put a solid color as a background, you'll need to first make sure that the layer is selected, and then select a color here on the left. Then select the Paint Bucket tool and click once on the workspace. And you can test and change colors until you get it to where you like it. If you wanted to place a template, you can open the template by going to File, Open, and selecting the file. Once a file is open, you'll see that there's a new tab here at the top. So we need to move this image to our graphic file. To do this, click on the Select tool on the toolbar, and hit Ctrl-A to select all. And then Ctrl-C to copy the image, and then click on the Project tab and paste it in with Ctrl-V. If your template was the same size, it'll paste perfectly in place. If not, you'll need to right-click, select Free Transform, and stretch it to fit the workspace. Once we have our background and we know that we're not going to edit it, we're going to lock it by selecting the background layer and pressing the lock button. A padlock shows up to the right of the layer here. This just indicates that the layer is locked and that we can't edit it. To the left of the layer is a button that looks like an eye. This is a visibility button, and it's a toggle switch to turn the layer on and off. If you press it, the eye goes away and the layer disappears. And if you press it again, then the eye and the layer reappear. This will be useful as we build our graphic. Once we have the file set up, we should save it. Go to File, Save As, and name the file something unique. And then select Photoshop PSD as a file type. We save it as a PSD at this point because a PSD will retain all the file information and leave it editable. I suggest keeping 2 copies of the files that you create, a PSD that you can reference and easily edit in the future, and a separate PNG or JPEG, whichever you actually load into your building automation system to use as a background. Now that the file is ready, we can start building our graphic. We're going to create an air system. A water system goes together in much the same way that an air system does, so this method can also be applied there. We're going to start by building the ductwork, but first we need to open the duct graphics that we're going to be using. To do this, you're going to go to File, Open, and navigate to the file that contains your Symbol Library graphics. It's worth noting that this video is only going to cover working from the base folder that is provided in our Symbol Library. This is because we are only able to create the background in Photoshop. Any animations need to be created in your building automation system, and there's just too many of them to cover. So with that in mind, I'll navigate to the base folder and find my ductwork. We're going to build a simple system, so we'll select the necessary pieces by holding Control and clicking on them. And once we have them all, we'll select Open. You can open them one by one. This is a lot easier. You'll see that all the graphics open their own tab again. We now need to copy them into our graphic file. So make sure that our layer is selected and select our marquee tool. Then we'll draw a box around it and hit Control-C to copy it. And then we'll go into our graphic file and hit Control-V to paste it. Then click the check box and close the file that you copied it from. And repeat this for each piece of ductwork that you're going to use. After you paste the graphics into your PSD, you notice that each time you paste the symbol in, it created a new layer, and it's getting kind of messy. So we're going to clean this up by creating a folder to hold all of our ductwork assets. To do this, you click on the new folder icon in the layer window, and then we'll drag all of our ductwork into the file. You can do this one by one, or you can hold Shift and click, and then drag them all in. Either way you do it, after you're done, we'll double click on the file and name it ductwork. Before we start building our system, we need to click on the Move tool and then double check at the top to make sure that the auto select is checked, that layer is selected in the drop down menu, and that the Show Transform Controls box is checked. With the Move tool selected, we can click on any graphic and it'll let us move it. So start building the system by grabbing symbols and sliding them to where you need them to be. The ductwork should snap together pretty well, but if it doesn't, you should check to make sure that the snap is enabled. You do this by going to View, Snap, and making sure that's selected. If you need to move a symbol by a very small increment, you can do this by first selecting it and then moving it with the arrow keys. This will shift it by just 1 pixel and should get you to where you need to be. Once again, we don't suggest resizing the symbols as it can cause problems when you try to add the animations. Depending on the order in which you brought the symbols in, sometimes a symbol will be underneath another one. To fix this, you just select the symbol that's on the bottom, and then in the layer window, drag the selected layer above the conflicting symbol. If you need to duplicate a symbol, you can just select it, then hold Alt while you drag it to its new position, and that will create a copy. Our library contains a couple different lengths of ductwork and pipe, but sometimes you need to stretch it to get to a desired length. To do this, simply select the ductwork to be stretched, grab the handle, and drag to the desired length, and then hit Enter. To recenter the ductwork, you can select the folder in the layer window, then select the Move tool, and move it with the arrow keys. If you need to move longer distances more quickly, you can hold the Shift key down while pressing the arrows, and that will speed it up. Once your ductwork is where you want it to be, you should lock the folder so we don't accidentally move it when we place the sensors. To do this, you just select the folder, and once again, click on the lock button. We're going to follow the same process to place our dampers, coils, and sensors. First, we'll go to File, Open, and then we'll navigate and find them. And then we'll select and open them. And then we'll copy them in to our PSD. Then we'll put the sensors in their own folder, and we'll name it Sensors. Be sure that the Sensors folder sits above the ductwork folder, as all the sensors sit on top of the ductwork. Then position them as need be. And as you position them, sometimes you might need to get a little bit better look to make sure they're lined up correctly. So zooming in might be a good idea. You can use Control and plus to zoom in, and Control and minus to zoom out. Or you can just hold Alt as you turn the scroll wheel on your mouse. And sometimes you may want to turn the sensors on or off. You can do this by toggling the visible button on the folder. After you get all of your sensors placed, then you should save your PSD again. And after you've completed your graphic, go to File, Save As, and save the image as either a PNG or a JPEG, whichever your building automation system uses, and that will be your background graphic. That concludes our tutorial. Thanks for joining me.